You ready to start? Okay. Good. I would like to call to order the December 14th, 2021 regular meeting of the Nelson County Board of Supervisors. Please stand for a moment of silence. Mr. Park, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We are going to open today's meeting with public comments. Just as a reminder, for the public, you should give your name and address. You have 3 minutes to make your point unless you're representing a group in which you may have some more. It's the chair's discretion whether additional time will be given. And let us get started. First person on the sign-up sheet is Al Ponton.
Yes, sir. My name's Al Ponton. I live in Livingston. And the thing that I'd like to talk about, well, one of the things is the assessment. It seems like there are a lot of people having issues with that. A lot of people live on Social Security, and I've got a sister that's 85 years old. So I made a call to the assessment number that was on that sheet, and I talked to the guy, and he was really nice about everything. He said, well, basically, the assessment was due to, 20-25% increase on the value of your house and land. Well, mine went up, as well as my sister's, about 34%, and he couldn't give me a good answer as to why it went up that much. And I think that you guys need to make some adjustments or something, or use somebody else. And I realize that the cost of land and houses and stuff like that have gone up, basically across the nation. And I understand that. But you have people, my sister lives on less than $900 a month, and she can't afford it. It's $66,000 increase on her house. And those are issues that you guys need to address, and I'm not exactly sure how you go about that. The other thing I'd like to talk about is, I know you creating a committee or something like that to talk about the statute out here. You need to create a committee to talk about what we do about drug abuse here in the county. I've got a son that's addicted. I've been working with him for over 2 years now. Right now he's in jail in Farmville. And they finally caught up with him. He missed court date. And hey, it's a tough thing to handle for parents. And whatever, that goes on here in the county, that sheriff's office, they need to look at this a little bit more in depth. Now I see on the agenda that you've got something on there about drug abuse or counseling or something. And I plan on staying around, long enough to hear what that's all about. But the drug use here in the county, you've got to address that. And you guys are the ones that I hold responsible for making those things happen and directing whatever needs to happen along those lines, along with the Commonwealth Attorney and all of those people, It is what it is, I've lived here all my life, and Lord knows I've got, I started at an early age using. And when I was 52, after my son was born, I quit. And I went through a program and I got clean. I've got over 18 years of clean time. And I know what I'm talking about because this progression with drug use, it's a horrible thing. We're having people overdosing and with the stuff coming across the border and stuff. And, we need to do something here in the county to take care of this here for the people who live in this county, and maybe we'll grow, for the state of Virginia and our nation. But that's basically what I want to talk about. And I appreciate you all listening. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Nelson.
Thomas Nelson, I live at
Right, you go.
Thomas Nelson, I live at 304 Deerwood Court, Roseland, Virginia. A couple things. I did got my assessment. I used the assessment officer to talk to, and he basically said everything went up all across the board for raising your house and improvements. One of the things I want to just let you know about, let's say our median price of homes went up 20% in the county. Therefore, according to state code, you're supposed to, before you negotiate the tax rate, is lower the tax rate as a start when you start looking at tax rate. So you would go down, let's say 20% of the tax rate, then you look at that figure. At that point, you're revenue neutral in the county. That's the idea, is you go up in the value, you come down, so your money's the same, you know that. So I would just suggest that you do state what the beginning rate is you're looking at for revenue neutral. As you know, in the Democratic White House, the Democratic state government, everything has gone up in cost. Therefore, when I go to the grocery store, my wife does, but excuse me, we pay more in taxes, which puts more money into the coffers of the county. About everything you do that has taxed by the county increases the revenue in the county. So I see, unless you want to spend more money, I would say you take the tax rate that's lower based on the housing values going up. Take that lower figure and accept it if you really don't want a lot, if you don't have any more money to spend on things. So I've been in places where the supervisor will say, well, we're not going to raise the tax rate. Well, it's already lowered by state code. So go with that lower figure, let people know about it. And then if you increase it 4 or 5%, let people know that you've done that and what you're going to do with the money. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Martha Eagle.
Good afternoon, Mr. Reed, board members, Mr. Carter and his team. Appreciate the moment to speak with you all. I just want to touch base real quick as we move into budget season. So I've heard in several individual and public meetings the comments regarding the school division $7 million federal grant funding. I just want to remind the board of the grant restrictions, as these funds must be used for their intended purpose. COVID-19 mitigation, address learning loss and emotional distress caused by the pandemic. I just implore you to not only look at the bottom line of that amount, but also reach out to ask questions so that we can make sure that you have a good understanding. Of the $7 million allocated to NCPS, approximately $3 million has been set aside for capital expenditures. Items such as school buses, cafeteria equipment, and a portion of a major roof replacement, as we've discussed, has been designated for the use of these federal funds, resulting in tax savings for the county taxpayers. This funding, as you probably know, is a one-time allotment for specific needs. It is not purposed for annual operating funding, and this funding is temporary and is scheduled to end 2024. I do want to bring your attention to a direct impact of a one-time allotment for our operational budget to the change in our LCI, which is our level composite index. It went from 0.5604 to 0.5888, which means our school division will receive less state funding for its regular operational budget according to SOQ funded positions. So as we head into the budget season, the first step, as you know, is to look at the governor's initial budget proposal coming out this next week and begin charting the projected funding and known increases or decreases in our expenses. The projected funding will change several times as we will receive the new governor's proposed budget in January, and then wait to see what the General Assembly does to finalize the budget. So there are many unknowns at this point. There are some things we do know though. Inflation is at a record high with 6.8% increase over the last 12 months. We are experiencing a severe labor shortage and will need to address salaries to be able to attract potential employees. We have vacancies in the following positions we've not been able to fill: bus drivers, custodians, instructional assistants, and teachers. So I just wanted to touch base again on some of those points for budget. So as you are aware, I am out for the next few months for some medical leave. And as we enter into budget season, I'm grateful that Dr. Joe Cox will be standing in as acting superintendent to work with the school division for daily needs, but also to work with Ms. Shannon Irvin in developing and presenting our budget. So Dr. Cox comes to us after retiring in 2019 from Colonial Heights with 18 years of experience as a superintendent. So I thank you for this opportunity to come before you. I thank you for your support of Nelson County Public Schools and in the budget. I wish all of you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. I will see you in the spring, but I'd like Dr. Cox just to say hello real quick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eagle. Good afternoon to everyone. It really is a privilege to be in Nelson County. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I look forward to working with the school board. I look forward to getting a chance to meet all of you as the budget unfolds and not only working with you individually, but also collectively. So thanks for having me in Nelson, and I look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to say before you step away, I know your brother quite well.
Great.
Yeah,
I do too.
I bet you do.
He always gleefully says, well, I'm his younger brother.
Right.
Very good.
Well, great. We'll look forward to your success in Tough and South.
Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to speak during public comments? Okay, we will then close the public comments and move to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Rutherford.
if there's nobody looking to pull any items from the consent agenda at this time, I would like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on the board?
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes. Okay, presentations. Our first presentation is on the proposed drug treatment court for Nelson County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Carter, how?
Perfect. There.
You get one.
There's a reason we practice in an 1809 courthouse. We don't have to use any of this. I'm just gonna hit this two presentations are going. Perfect. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for letting me have to come and present. Of course, I'm the Commonwealth's attorney for anyone else here for Nelson County. For some time, I know you've been able to see reports or see things going on. I want to give a brief update on what we have. First, I want to make a quick disclaimer that all the data I'll be showing comes from Mr. Goodlove, who's also here in the back. I have with me on part of this presentation, we have the Nelson Wellness Alliance with Dr. Stephanie Martin. We have Ms. Susan Morrow, and of course have my assistant Commonwealth's attorney, Will Flory, who I called in or stole from Waynesboro, who will be presenting on some challenges not only we've seen, but some potential uses we could do to address these challenges. So as the past 10 years, you've kind of seen through Mr. Goodloe's reports. I'm going to give a quick rundown. It won't be all of his reports together. But it's fair to say that Nelson County has had a vast increase in the charges that were taken out and the amount of people who are incarcerated. So as you can kind of see there, the crimes against person, the rate started on par with the average for comparable counties, but rose steeply starting in 2016. Of course, in 2016, you just had a new sheriff's election. Sheriff took over on January 16th, and I came in office in November. And with that combination, we saw Nelson's incarceration rate go at 6% of the ACRJ population to about 13, almost 14% of the ACRJ population. You can kind of go down and see Nelson's crimes against society rate began below that of the comparable counties, and then of course we've increased 163% compared to the peer group. We're going to get into that a little bit more, and of course, if you have any other specific questions, I have Mr. Goodlow who would be able to nail down into those things. So this is a brief presentation that shows, and sorry, it's almost fitting in, that shows our biggest crimes. We have narcotics, DUI, assault. You can see it by year from 2011 to 2020, and you can see in Nelson County, narcotics has taken off and has taken over in great fashion. More importantly, from 2011 to 2020, that blue chart is narcotics. It has increased by 550% since 2011 to 2020. That is at the current rate that this office, between the Office of the Commonwealth's Attorney and the Sheriff's Department, if you let things stay where they are without any mitigation or any other tools we have, we will continue doing what we do. But you will see that keep continuing because we can't charge our way out of addiction. And I say that as this office has no problems incarcerating individuals. We take no pleasure in it, but we will do it, and we will do our job each and every day. You also see we have probation violations that have increased 414%. So that's felons who are sentenced to jail, come out, are put on probation, and then reoffending again. A 415%. Then you see a weapons increase. My office takes it really serious. I love my firearms. I train my kids. But if a criminal is using a firearm, we do not take any mercy or pity on them. So we make sure that we include that and that they are punished for that part as well. So again, sorry for this chart. I'm going a little bit fast to do it, but this is the comparative. I don't know, Ms. Pipe, could you address it so it would fit in the screen a little bit better? So this is kind of the Nelson comparable to all the other counties regarding, this should be crimes against the person. So that will be your assault batteries, anything like that, where the crime is against the individual. Comparable counties are down overall 4%. Nelson County's increase went up 142%.
Can you shrink the lens, the actual projection?
You just shrink it down a little bit.
That's that way. So usually it fits.
Well, it usually does. Let's see.
Well, see, you're missing the whole left side.
I know.
Yeah.
We moved the,
Science.
Look at that.
Thank you, Rosalind. Great representation.
I'm going to backtrack just briefly so you can see these two. Just briefly, it's all of Nelson's bookings. So obviously that's for the Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail. That shows everything from narcotics, DUI, assault, larceny, license issues, probation violations, conspiracies, weapons, and then going all the way down to fraud. Here is the percentage change from 2011 to 2012 on each of those that we talked about. And then of course, this is now how we're ranking in our comparable counties with the increase. Again, you see in 2015 to 2016, things changed because we start taking things a lot more serious in the law enforcement community. It's not because necessarily they weren't there. It was just sometimes it was overlooked or other things. So here's the crimes against property that we've had. Notice how Nelson County fits in with the like-kind population. Appomattox, Floyd, Madison, Nottoway, and so forth. You can see how since 2011 all the way to 2020, it has stayed relatively high, but of course in 2020 it has gone up. Crimes against property, again, in the chart showing to comparable counties. And then wanted to switch more into the Nelson County narcotics booking. I want to show you in 2011 to 2020 on those looks. So in the 2019, you see that tall blue. That right there represents over 90 or over 110 individuals. So that's your felony possessions. That's not distribution. That's just straight possession. That's your addicts. So you can see in 2011, it was 7 people, and there was 4 people who were arrested and booked for distribution. We come into 2020 with the coronavirus impacting officers' ability to do things for safety reasons. It is at 54 individuals, with over 34 individuals being charged with possession with intent to distribute. So that's your drug dealers. We're not talking about people selling a gram to support a habit. We're talking about people that we've been arresting. Since November, the Sheriff's Department, the corresponding drug task force has taken over 14 pounds of methamphetamine off the street here in Nelson. 14 pounds. So it's not some small number. And so that is brought into this number. Here's the most important thing. So this is taking all the individuals, and if you start running it together, this is the average length of day all of those individuals spend in jail. So 74 days for possession. Possession with intent to distribute, 148 days. And then probation violations, 113 days. This is the crimes against society. Of course, now this is your drugs. It's under the crimes against society characterization. It shows how Nelson ranks again on our like-kind positions. Now, I didn't put this in there, but you'll see we submitted how Fluvanna put in for their request for a drug court. In this ranking, Nelson County outdoes Fluvanna and it's not a prideful thing to say, it's regrettable. We have more charges against society per 1,000 residents than Fluvanna does. We have had a decrease from 2019 into 2020, but I showed you the first chart. That decrease still has us at 553% higher than where we were in 2011. But this shows how we've come down. What's important is in 2017 and 18 and going into 19, our office took the extraordinary step to take federal-esque statutes and to go after drug traffickers, what's under the name of racketeering. So we charge people we had federales working in the police force in Mexico we charged. We had individuals in Jamaica we charged operating out of here. We hauled people up from Atlanta, Charlotte, anyone who would take large amounts of drugs and ended in Nelson. We started wrapping up into this and making sure that those Nelsonians who were involved, who also are distributing large amounts, were brought into this. And so you can see after our efforts, it decreased the amount. The coronavirus also impacted us. So we're trying to figure out if that's going to be going on. But regardless, even with this decrease, we're still 500% higher than where we were in 2011. And I keep saying that because that is a massive number. So here's the Acrj felony drug cases, just to compare us with everyone else. You see Nelson County starting out in 2001, so I backtracked us even more. And of course, going all the way up to 2019. You can then see the massive increase we had compared to Albemarle and Charlottesville. Here's the drug certificate types. When you want to know, well, what are the drugs? Methamphetamine is it. At the end of the day, methamphetamine is eating our county alive, whether you like to admit it or not. The school system will see it in the students. Everyone will see it from every level. It doesn't just affect us in the court system. The counselors see it. The teachers see it. I say this, my wife and I, we foster, not through Nelson County. Our children we foster were born addicted to meth. And they were born premature. And we are working through that because that's something my wife and I do. But it affects everybody and everything. Grandparents, siblings, officers, sheriffs, Commonwealth attorneys, boards of supervisors, parents. It's not something to be ignored. So here's the cost. So we went over kind of the days and the individuals. There's two total numbers. One that the county generally is on the hook for and has to pay is the $69.90 per person. The $93.96 is the overall, that's what everything combined pays. So when you start looking at the numbers that we have, so just 2020, 54 people, if they serve an average of 74 days in jail, and we multiply that over a lot of things, we're talking just possession only, a large sum of money. So here's the bed expenditures. Nelson County's expense has gone up over 67% compared to Charlottesville going down and Albemarle slightly going up. This is pre-pandemic. Now I'm showing you this. This here is our figures we keep. This is how the Commonwealth Attorney's Office gets paid by the Supreme Court. We get paid only looking at circuit court. I start in 2011 on the far right. You have dispositions, that means final sentencing, and you have filings. We get paid on considering both. It's a travesty how they figure this, but I want to just show you how our office has handled things. In 2011, the Office of the Commonwealth Attorney disposed of 173 felony cases. At the height of the pandemic, our office resolved 416 in 2020. A year earlier, 612. Just this year, all the way through October, we resolved 311. So we're on par to be double that of 2011 with only 33% of the office staff. We have one new assistant. Again, it's just what we do. You can also see the filings are coming up. You see how everything's filed in 2011 and coming in January through October. So the filings are still there. Our filings are set to be higher than what they were in 2020. 2020 was a pandemic year. So again, the numbers that we resolve in circuit court are still tremendously higher than where we were from 5 years ago and earlier. So one thing I want to take a pause real quick. I want to introduce Mr. Flory real quick, and he's going to explain kind of where we go and what we do from here. Mr. Flory?
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Will Flory. I'm one of your assistant Commonwealth attorneys. If you don't know me, I came to the Nelson County Commonwealth Attorney's Office in July of this year from the Waynesboro Commonwealth Attorney's Office. When I was in Waynesboro, my primary remit was major narcotics, although I did all kinds of cases there. Prior to that, I spent a year as a law clerk for a circuit court judge in Stanton. I am cross-sworn as a special assistant United States attorney. I have worked in the drug context. I have worked with Homeland Security folks, DEA, ATF. So I've sort of done all of those things you can do from a state prosecution side in terms of drug prosecution. And one of the things that Mr. Rutherford asked me to do when he brought me here was evaluate the way that our office was handling cases, and specifically was handling drug cases and dealing with the continued increase in drug crime in the face of the aggressive prosecution that's going on in Nelson County, particularly over the last couple of years, and how we see that continued increase in drug crime, even in light of the fact of the more aggressive prosecution. So I want to contextualize this for you guys a little bit so you kind of understand exactly what we're talking about here. So we've been fighting the war on drugs since 1971. That's when, and I almost put Richard Nixon on this slide, but that's when most people consider the war on drugs began. So we've been fighting this war for 50 years. And what we've learned is, over the last 50 years, is that prosecuting people is only one tool. And we cannot prosecute our way out of drug addiction. It just doesn't work. We can put people in jail over and over and over again, and we're not going to solve the underlying sickness that contributes to the drug trade that creates all of these societal problems. And just to contextualize, you get that, the 14-pound number that Mr. Rutherford threw out for you all earlier, and I had to do the math on my cell phone because I can't do the math, but so those 14 pounds contain 453 grams per pound of methamphetamine. The average addict will consume approximately between 1 gram and 3 grams per day. So just for the sake of math, let's say a gram. That's about 6,500 single uses of methamphetamine that have been taken off the street in this county. 6,500 days where people would have been on meth and aren't now because of those seizures. And that's just a drop in the bucket in terms of volume. Just last year over in Waynesboro, they seized 45 pounds of methamphetamine. So it's here. We are doing a pretty good job of stopping it from getting into the county, but it's here, it exists, and it's a problem. And those problems create additional problems outside of the criminal justice system. You have, and create added costs for our society. So you have adolescent exposure. You have associated criminal activity by users. When I first started as a prosecutor, I asked a street cop that had been a police officer for over 30 years, I said, tell me the difference between heroin and methamphetamine. And he said, well, somebody who uses heroin, they're going to take heroin and they're going to sit down and they're going to brown out in front of television. And they're just going to sit there and feel high. And that's the chemical reaction that heroin creates. It's a sedative. The methamphetamine user is the guy, this is what he told me, a methamphetamine user is the guy you find naked hanging from the monkey bars in the playground at 3 a.m. Methamphetamine is designed to make people more active, and it's an upper, it's a stimulant. And so it, by virtue of the fact that the primary drug of choice for our addicts in this county is a stimulant, you're going to have additional associated criminal activity. larceny, breaking and entering, property damage, those sorts of things. So that's another additional cost both to the community and to the criminal justice system that exists because of the use of methamphetamine and addiction. Increased healthcare and emergency services cost, and the increased criminal justice costs. And you've seen some of those as demonstrated by the graphs that Mr. Rutherford put up. So how do we solve this? Mr. Rutherford sort of demonstrated to you what the problem is. And so how do we, the question, and this is where I get to be have the fun part of the presentation, is I hopefully get to present to you one of the solutions, or what we think the solution is, certainly. Our office has done a really good job disrupting the supply of methamphetamine, and the Sheriff's Department and the Jefferson Area Drug Task Force have done a really good job addressing this flow of drugs into the county. We're not 100% successful by any stretch of the imagination, but we've been very effective at disrupting the supply. But you got to contextualize this in terms of supply and demand. And where we're missing, the piece that we're missing, the component piece that we're missing right now, is addressing the demand. We can keep targeting traffickers, and we can keep arresting people and putting them in jail. And we're going to disrupt the supply, but we're going to disrupt it temporarily as long as there is still demand for drugs. So what we're here to talk to you guys about today is drug court. So drug court is what we would call a diversion program. And what that means is that it's a program whereby we take criminal defendants that are identified based on a set of criteria and divert them from traditional criminal justice treatment, which is to say, pull them out of the normal criminal justice system and put them in a program that runs through the criminal justice system, through our office in the circuit court, that is designed to treat addiction. And the goals are to reduce addiction, reduce dependency, as a byproduct, reduce recidivism, reduce court workloads, because hopefully if we have less addicts who are committing less crimes, we'll have less crimes to prosecute. Increase personal, familial, and societal accountability. And this is where I want you to think about those costs that I put up. Minors exposed to methamphetamine. Emergency service. These are areas where there are not necessarily measurable impacts, but I think we can all agree that reduction in methamphetamine addiction is going to cause positive outcomes in the foster care system, for our DSS workers, for our healthcare system. So it's going to promote employment, which is going to increase tax revenue, right? So there are all of these ancillary benefits that go beyond simply reducing the crime rate, which is a pretty laudable goal in and of itself. So what a drug court looks like is there is a group of people called a drug court team. And the drug court team consists of the circuit court judge, a probation officer, a clinician, a defense attorney, someone from the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, someone from the Sheriff's Office, and there are various other probation people, the Department of Health. There's other folks that are entitled to be on the team if they so choose, but are not necessarily required to be on the team. And what these people will do is meet once a week and identify candidates for the program, implement the program, and run and manage the program. And so what that looks like is every Thursday morning, or Friday morning, or whatever morning of the week we pick, I say Thursday because that's what I'm used to, all of these folks come to the courthouse. And they come to the courthouse and they report all the AA meetings that they've gone to that week, all the treatment they've completed that week. They get a gold star from the judge. They get positive affirmation. And they get a list of tasks for the next week. And they're sent off to complete those tasks and proceed through the program. They're monitored for drug use. They are sanctioned if they fail to complete the parts of the program. Those sanctions usually include incarceration. But the idea being to create both positive affirmation and negative consequences to modify behavior. And because that's the only way we can treat the addiction, is to try and modify behavior in such a way and to give the addicts the tools. We can't do it for them. Mr. Rutherford and I can't make them seek treatment. What we can do by investing in drug court is create a system under which they have opportunity and access to the resources necessary to lift themselves out of addiction. And these resources in some ways exist now. Our biggest challenge right now for our offenders is geography and access to services. And those are two of the problems that we could address with drug court by bringing drug court here. The idea would be that our offenders would have access to both clinical treatment, probation, and supervision here in Nelson County. We would not have to travel to Lynchburg or to Charlottesville to have access to those things. So I wanted to throw this up there. This is generally drug court programs contain 4 to 5 phases. Usually it takes a member, a participant about a year to 2 years to complete the program. So in this particular model, and this is not necessarily the one we use, it's just one that I pulled off the National Association of Drug Court Professionals website. This is what they use as their model for phase 1. And so you'll see this is pretty basic stuff, right? Drug testing. You're going to come to court. You're going to go to appointments. You're going to be honest. You're going to do some very basic things, but these are the fundamental levels that we have to start on with addicts to make sure that we can give them the tools they need to be successful. And as a participant goes through the phases, the supervision level decreases. So as they demonstrate their abilities to succeed, then the degree of supervision is reduced and they can begin to be independent from the program. The idea being that at the conclusion of the program, when the person graduates, they have the tools to be gainfully employed, not reoffend, and deal with their addiction outside of the criminal justice system, essentially. And so this sounds like a great idea, but I know you all are interested in what the impact might be. And so every year the Commonwealth conducts an evaluation of all of the drug courts across the state. And the number one thing, obviously up here, is the reduced recidivism, right? And so that's going to have those societal impacts that we talked about. Better outcomes all the way across the board in terms of foster care, employment, children in the home, that kind of thing. The other thing I want to point out to you is that according to the Commonwealth, treatment is the most expensive cost. So treatment accounts for 76% of the cost of drug court. Treatment means going to a clinical setting and accessing the tools that you need to be treated for your addiction. It's extremely expensive, but compared to traditional incarceration, traditional prosecution methods, including incarceration, the average savings per departure, and when they say departure, what they mean is somebody who leaves a drug court program, per defendant, this is how you can read that, it's $19,000. That's what the Commonwealth says across the state. What the Commonwealth is saving and the localities are saving per outcome, per positive outcome. So we're on a little bit of a timeline here, and I wanted to point this out to you because I want the board to understand what the Commonwealth Attorney's Office is doing. So to have a drug court here in Nelson County, what we've got to do is write an application and submit it to the Supreme Court. They are the arbiter of can you have a drug court or not. Part of that application process is receiving some training. We have applied for that training, and the folks that we identify as potential members of the team, particularly folks from my office, the judge, folks from the pretrial supervision agencies, folks that we think are well positioned to provide clinical services, will undergo that training with us. And as I've been led to understand by the state drug court program coordinator, that training is sort of the touchstone to unlocking the application process. But in the meantime, I've got to write an application for drug court. I've got to work with our partner agencies, namely OAR and Region 10, to write this application. And I think Mr. Rutherford provided a copy of Fluvanna County's application for all of you. That is, as you can see, if you've had a chance to take a look at that, it's an extremely time-intensive process and involves collecting together a lot of information from a lot of different sources, some of which we have access to and some of which we're going to have to create. Our goal is that the Supreme Court accepts applications twice a year. They accept applications in the fall and in May. Our goal is to have our application to the Supreme Court by May of this year. And what that will allow us to do if we're approved is to begin to seek funding through grant resources. And I just had, we've got Ms. Morrow from OAR here today. She was just providing me with some more information about those grant processes. Our hope will be to fund both a clinical position, i.e. the clinician that we need to provide the treatment for the folks in drug court, and the drug court coordinator, the person who does the day-to-day, the drug testing, the confirming that they've gone to their AA meetings through grant funding. That is our goal. But as you all know, grants are not guaranteed. And so this is the timeline that we're on, but we don't, until we get approved, we can't begin going down the process of grant writing. So this is going to be a lengthy process. And it's going to be a lengthy process once we get approved. And it's going to be a lengthy process from the time we get approved and get our grants to the time we see our first inductee in the drug court. And I think once we get the program established, we're going to have lots of good candidates. I know Ms. Rutherford and I have evaluated a number of cases recently that would be excellent candidates. In fact, I was in circuit court last week, and I had the defense attorney and the judge say to me, "Aren't you working on drug court? How come you don't have that up and running yet? We want to put this person in drug court when that time comes." So there is a need for a program like this. There is a need for these resources. They make sense financially, and I think they make a lot of sense for the community. This is the time frame we're on, and I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Rutherford now for the last little bit.
So ultimately, I know the number is going to be, what does this cost? What's going on? We try to give you what their costs were. They were able to get a $500,000 grant over a 3-year period, but it didn't really cover everything. At the same time, what we kind of anticipate, making sure that there's additional hours covered for the bailiffs. That drug court itself is intensive for the clerk's office. We want to make sure that of this $255,000 that we anticipate per year, that goes to the clerk's office, gets a supplement, because that's additional work for the deputy clerks. This is an additional job they're given. My office would need supplements because this is an additional work. It's very time intensive. You would need to have funding for OAR, as that individual would be here to supervise the Nelsonians. Our goal is not to have them drive to Charlottesville, but that it's run from here in Nelson. We also need to make sure that there's recovery support through Region 10, and we've talked with Region 10 on those costs. We want to make sure that the purchase of drug and testing supplies are also all included. I know $255,000 is a lot. My budget is $150,000 more than that, and that's prosecuting every individual. I don't say this lightly on this part, but I can't emphasize enough. If we keep doing nothing, our 54 could go back up to 110 and can keep going from there, because it will. And where we started in 2011, if we would have taken this serious, when we were back at 7, we would be in a whole different ballgame. This number that we're dealing with, the problems that we're having, isn't going to go away. And as much as I would wish it to, and looking at the numbers again, I know it's not cheap. But at the same time, we cannot afford to do nothing. If someone goes to jail for more than 280 days, you spend over $18,000. And those individuals have. Just yesterday, we sent someone on a probation violation. It was his first probation violation, to 1 year in jail. So you have now funded 1/10 of drug court to that person. And we sentenced way more than one person. So I don't mean to be kind of very direct on that, but we cannot afford to do nothing on this. What I am asking in the meantime to help with this is Mr. Flory. I've been able to steal him from Waynesboro. He handled and ran the drug court on behalf of Waynesboro. He's very knowledgeable, as we've seen. He's had over 6 years of being a prosecutor or a clerk for the circuit court. So he understands how this goes. I am asking for a supplement of $7,500 to assist him because he's doing a lot of this work that you see off of work hours. My office, independent of all of this, is absolutely slammed. We have 15 jury trials set between now and June 30th. Last year, we had 2 jury trials total. The year before that, we had 7 jury trials. The laws have changed on how we handle things, and it's impacting our workload. Again, my office handles it. I appreciate always working with the county. I understand that I always come asking for things, but this is something a little bit more than what my office has, and this is to be able to start addressing the things. I honestly didn't know Mr. Conklin was coming, and I'm glad you did come, sir. Because we get to deal with more than just his family. There are hundreds of cases just like his that we handle every single time, every day. When we had the high schoolers come to our office, and they got to sit in on one case where a gentleman had over a pound of meth buried in his backyard. The high schoolers got to see it. Followed by another individual who had drugs and guns in his car. That was a 19-year-old at the time of the offense. It was meth over at the junction. It's not stopping. And so we're asking that you provide some supplements so we can continue on. My office is willing to take the lead to get all this in. We're not asking for a full-time person. We're not asking for a grant writer. Mr. Fleury, I have all faith and confidence in his ability to see this through the end. But we're asking for some support so that we can get all the applications and paperwork in, so we can work with the OERs, we brought them, continue working with the Wellness Alliance, continue working with Mr. Goodlow on getting all the data that he's provided us, as that's instrumental. This isn't a one-man shop. We're working with every agency partner we have as we brought them. Region 10 was supposed to be here. They had something come up, but they can't. We're working hand in hand with them. So this isn't just a common attorney task, but we wish to take the lead to be able to make this happen. So I want you to keep in mind what the big picture is. We're going to try to alleviate the 255 as much as we can, but at the same time, I want to be upfront and honest what it is and not overpromise something that's simply not true. But with all this going on, like I said, we would ask for a supplement so we can continue doing this. We would ask that if there are funds that you've received through the coronavirus backfill, if you could set some aside potentially if we don't get grants, we would like to continue going on because we can't afford to do nothing. Otherwise, my office is only tool's incarceration. And if that's the only tool we have, then that's the tool we'll use. But if we can use more, my office will greatly do that. My door is always open. I don't want to, I'd be more than happy to take questions, but also know you have to run the whole county and get to the next order of business. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Mr. Rutherford, what is the incentive? I know it's a voluntary program for for those that are in.
I'm going to turn it over to the brains of the operation who has seen it work for change.
Right. So I know it's a voluntary program. What is the incentive for those people with, with crimes on their record?
Generally, it depends on how you design the program. Most programs involve either a charge reduction or an outright dismissal of the charge. That's something that we would probably have to evaluate on a case-by-case basis and craft an outcome as part of the plea bargain process that puts a person into the drug court program. Drug courts generally come in 2 varieties, what people call pre-conviction and post-conviction. Pre-conviction are drug courts where people have an opportunity to get their charges dismissed. Post-conviction are, all right, you got convicted of a crime, now your choice is go to jail or go to drug court. And I think that our perspective generally is we'd like to follow the pre-conviction model. Generally, the pre-conviction model has a higher success rate because the sort of carrot and stick thing is a little bit stronger. And I think it provides us an opportunity to intervene in the lives of some young people who maybe aren't convicted felons yet. And we can help them get the treatment they need and avoid a felony conviction if possible. So that's kind of the direction we would go. Obviously, the incentive is you don't go to jail and maybe you avoid a conviction. You have any other questions?
The getting the treatment they need piece, I'm sorry Region 10's not here today to address that because that would be useful for us.
Francine Laverty from Region 10 was going to be here. She had a death in the family, so she was not emailed me this morning. I think they are equipped. They provide the treatment component for the Charlottesville and Albemarle drug court programs, for the Fluvanna drug court programs. They are equipped to, the programs exist. It's a question of getting the staffing to a place where they can implement the programs in this area, I think is what she would say, based on our discussions. And so, and particularly, you know, for example, with drug court, because of the structured nature of the program, we're able to put people in, for example, there's a program that we call, it's often called IOP, Intensive Outpatient Program. And that can be a 4 to 8 hour day outpatient program where an individual goes and completes programming like they are in an inpatient setting, but they're in an outpatient setting, they go home every night, right? And so that's a program that, for example, is much easier to get people into and have them complete when they're in the highly structured environment of drug court than when they're trying to do it on their own. When they don't have the positive affirmation and the probation officer following up with them saying, hey, did you go to your treatment this week? When they don't have that added incentive of, hey, I know if I don't do this, I'm going to jail. And so that's kind of I think that they have the tools that they need. It's a question of applying the right resources in the right ways to utilize those tools and make them more accessible for folks that live here in the county.
I was struck when you put up on the board 1972 was the beginning of the war on drugs. The use of drugs, addiction is a health problem. And it's really nice to hear you talk in those terms. There are criminal aspects to it, I understand. What really, I thank you for making this kind of turn and going in this direction. My real question is, what do you want us to do for you right now?
So I'll speak to this one. For myself, Will, it would be nice to pay him what he's worth. He's taken on this additional work in addition to prosecuting a lot of our other intense drug cases, taking on a third of the load of general district and juvenile court. He's taking on this drug court as an additional job title. I put in here our like-kind compadres that are ATTIs. Augusta, who handles drug court, has a county supplement of $19,000. Fluvanna's the same, they have a $22,000 county supplement. And then Rockbridge, without any, with the same training experience, they have that pay. Mr. Fleury does not get to that level, and I would like to increase his pay to be on par with some of the other folks. And I've given the entire county supplement of every county and every jurisdiction for every office, for the office of the Commonwealth's attorney, to show where they all are. But for Mr. Fleury to be able to pay for all the training he's already done, we sent him down to Alabama for other training that he does just being a special U.S. assistant attorney. He does a phenomenal amount. And to be able to do this, to be able to work, because he goes to the Nelson Wellness Alliance meetings, he goes to a lot of things to make sure we bring this all together. But to make this happen, it takes extra time. So I'm asking for $7,500 as a supplement to Mr. Fleury between now and the end of June, so we can get this application in, because it's time intensive. It's a 35-page application. Getting the training in place with the Supreme Court and getting the grant writing done. He's going to take that on as well. So that's what we're asking for, working with every other part in the agency. But that is what I'm asking for to assist him between now and then. Keeping in mind, though, what the big picture is for drug court.
And I think that what I would encourage you to do is keep that 250 number in the back of your mind, because we may be back in 6 months and say, we tried to get grants and we couldn't, and this is what it costs. And because that's what a fully staffed drug court would cost the county per year. And obviously we hope to see grant funding that will take care of a lot of the costs associated with the staffing. But it's going to take buy-in and financial support from the board to make this happen.
So that's all you want? Yeah. Anything else you want? No.
Well, for right now, that is it. I want to be upfront and honest. I appreciate Chairman Reed's help. We were able to keep supplements.
No, I
needed.
appreciate your honesty in terms
For
of
right now, that is it.
cost and everything. But it's clear to me what you're talking about is something we should have done a long, long time ago.
Yes, and with the help of Mr. Flory, he made sure that we had the presentation ready, and I apologize getting a little tardy here. I was stuck in Kentucky for a couple of days over the past week. But that is all we need right now. That is what we're just asking to be able to get this application in and continue working with our agency partners. We'll probably be back in May to update you on the application process. This is gonna be a continual involvement we have, just updating where we're going and what the next steps will be. But between now through June, that is all we can ask. Aside from waiting for the Supreme Court, or if you wanna go talk to Justice Lemons now. Aside from that, that's all we can do.
What would be a straight 12-month cost?
For drug court,
What you're talking about here is only for.
that's right, it would be $15,000 a year. My goal is to bring him to the like kind of Savannah that just did their drug court. Because again, unrelated, my office was entitled to another full-time assistant commonwealth attorney. We forgave that for some county supplements. My office is still continuing to operate, reviewing the body worn camera, doing everything as we should. Mr. Flory is actually on the same experience as my deputy commonwealth attorney with the scope and everything else, and I was able to bring him on with the promise of little pay and a lot of work. What I would like to do though is, given that he's taking on additional work outside of any other true assistant commonwealth attorney, to be able to then properly compensate him. As we go in the near future, we're not asking for any full-time position for drug court until we really see how it's going. So I'm just wanting to compensate my employees for their hard work that are handling the drug court. So when it comes to a full year, it would be a $15,000, which would put him on par with who ran under Augusta and Rockbridge. Again, if he was just a new assistant and we had one of those, we paid him the new assistant rate and we kept him on that level. We're kind of in a different plane with Mr. Flory. Subject to any other questions to the board?
That salary would be a recurring cost, right?
That is correct. It would be as long as we have drug court. If there's no drug court, if it all fails, then obviously it's over and done and we won't be happy. But if drug court's going on, it's gonna be an additional court session, an additional paperwork, an additional case management, and an additional style that my office has to integrate in.
Commissioner, I mean, you are fully committed to this.
Yes. As long as the Supreme Court approves us, which after we're done our training, we should, we're committed to making sure we do this, because if we don't, I don't want to be the definition of insanity. We're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result of dealing with addiction.
Can we make Mr. Chairman, can we make a motion at this time?
Certainly you can.
Any of the other members of the board want to make comments?
Is there any other discussion?
I'm good.
All my questions have been answered.
Okay. Mr. Barton?
I make a motion we fund what Mr. Rutherford has asked for $15,000,
Will be 7,500 for this.
7,500 for initial funding for looking into this idea of a drug court.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
So the 7,500 is,
Just for
it
Mr.
sounds
Flory.
like it's almost like we're approving a grant writing sort of position.
It's compensating Mr. Flory for all the work that he'll be doing for this. It's not necessarily grant writing, it's also drafting the policies of how we operate under drug
To
court.
get to the point.
That
to
is
see if we're-
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So I'll have to write the application attend the training, write the application. In the meantime, I'll be writing grants to try to get the other positions filled. I'll be working with OAR, Region 10 to establish the actual programming for the program. The programs all have a manual. And so the initial hurdle to get through is to get the approval of the Supreme Court.
I mean, I think it's extraordinary. We're extraordinarily lucky to have him, Mr. Floyd. with so much experience in this, do it.
And to let the board know, once drug court's approved, that will include, say, the 15,000 for the full year, handling drug. As we worked in and did our personnel, he would then be taking that over, as that was his brainchild and his desire to be able to handle both aspects. My office equally involved, but I've been able to, through the body worn camera agreements, make sure my other employees are adequately compensated for where they're at. But to bring Mr. Flory up, it will cover that as well, so there won't be a, hey, that's just the application process, that's everything during the drug court.
I'd also like to state that in my work with Nelson County Community Wellness Alliance, Ms. Martin and Ms. Rose with the Department of Social Services are similarly committed to the other significant piece of the success of the drug court, which is the coordination of the services.
Yes, and we will always be working hand in hand with all of our agency partners, because this is an entire county effort. It's not going to be just the Sheriff's Department, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and OER. Everyone has to be involved to get the treatment for these individuals. When it comes to the drug traffickers, then it will just be the Sheriff's Department, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, to take care of that part. But for the addiction part, it has to be a much bigger collaborative effort.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Hardy,
Yes.
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Mr. Farmer,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford,
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Brown, for your patience. And if you could now come and give us your VDOT report. Thank you.
I'd like to report I think I've shared some of those information, the bus stop warning hit sign that was requested on 8 Hour at Lakeland, that has been installed. 151 traffic counts, that has still not been converted to from raw data into a count that would make sense if it was given to you. So I've been promised by our traffic folks that I will receive that this week. So that will be coming.
Would it make more sense for us to meet later once that data's in?
Well, I don't know if it will or not. I really don't know. It possibly would. We would have the latest data, but they are supposed to be getting me that information, just, get it formatted so it can make better sense of it. We are working on Firehouse Road, do some widening over there. Some widening on Firehouse Road that was requested by Mr. Parr. That project is ongoing. Unfortunately, we ran into a little problem and completed it. Weather and we had a very major COVID outbreak at one of our area headquarters that was working on it. We kind of got shut down on that. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot to report. We just got to have Wilson Road, Rural Rustic Park Surfing Project ready to start. Should start on that early this spring. I did come through Route 6, that bridge at Route 6 in Woodsville. I know that's been an issue for a lot of folks. They have opened the bridge back up, and it is, we will be back next spring to do a lane closure for a couple of days to do an epoxy overlay on it, but that's just 2 days of work. So I'm glad that's opened back up and as impact has been reduced, because that was a pretty good impact up there. And it was a hard job, hard project, and wasn't an easy way to do it. I did go out, I don't know if any of you had a chance to go out on 250 at 151 where the roundabout's been constructed. Looks like that's moving along pretty good. I did send Mr. Carter the construction phases, I think, yeah. Yeah, if you want to see the construction phases of how it's going to go, but it's going to be pretty much initially be built out of the existing pavement, and you know, it's going to be a little impact, but not a lot of impact, so I think that'll go pretty smoothly. But other than that, I really don't have a whole lot else to report to you all.
Okay, anyone have some comments or questions for Mr. Brown?
I do not have anything at this time.
Okay, David?
So do you think the construction at Route 6 and 29 has had an impact on the increase in truck traffic using 151 all the way through the south end of the county? I've had a few constituents express concern about the increased volume of truck traffic.
It could have, it very well could have, but, you know, some of those, you know, the restriction to go over Brent's Mountain, I mean, I don't know that they would have made it over Brent's Mountain with the long trucks if they were staying on 151. But there was a request though, to review the signage for the truck restrictions on 151. I think, Mr. Boyd received a letter, Mr. Boyd, you received a letter from Mr. Rowe, to look at SVDOT to review the signage for truck restrictions on 151. You know, this came up when we had the mudslide or the landslide up on 250, that, you know, our signage may need to be looked at, and we're certainly, with this continued interest in it, and I think it's a good time for us to do that. To take a good look at how our signage is and make sure that it may have been fine 20 years ago or 10 years ago, but I think it's time to take a look at it, to review it and make sure that we have what we need.
Was that letter referring to the north end of the county or the southern end of the county, or what? Do you know?
Mostly, no, it's pretty much the whole road.
Yeah.
Says, I need your advice. I want to get the illegal trucks off 151 between 250 and 6, and Route 6 between 151. It is the northern section, Mr. Paul.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and talking about River Road.
Because it's trickling south. So a couple of Sundays ago, I decided, after hearing a few concerns from people, I decided to go on a Sunday drive, and I waited for a road tractor to come through Piney River. And just for the heck of it, I followed a big truck, okay? Not a little box, but a big road tractor. Went through Piney River, Roseland, over Brent's Mountain, took a left on Beach Grove Road, went up across Reed's Gap, down through Sharando, and hit 64 at the other side of Afton Mountain. This was at 6 o'clock on a Sunday evening. The following Tuesday, we had our planning session over on the other side of Brent's Mountain. And the meeting room we were in, we could see both Beach Grove Road and 151. And during that meeting, we counted, it was at least 3, if not 4, full-size road tractors come down off Brent's Mountain and turn and go up Beach Grove during our meeting. And that was between 9 and 4 in the afternoon. It's just constant now, but it's Brent's Mountain now.
We keep eliminating the obstacles. You know, we took that rock outcropping off of the side of the mountain up there.
He did make it around Reed's Gap. I was impressed that he kept going. But I was just curious to see. He almost turned to go to Hershey, and he got over into the left lane and then whipped it back and kept going through Sharando. Instead of turning there to go to Hershey, he went straight to 64. I don't know, I hadn't personally seen the increase in traffic, so I just started looking, and It is.
I mean, we review our signage and say there's improvements to be made, then, you know, I hate to say it, and I hate to, it's an enforcement issue.
It is. I'll tell you this, he saw the sign of Beach Road because he brake checked when he saw it,
Oh, yeah.
and then he kept on going.
Oh,
So he didn't miss the sign. Well, anyway, that's all.
Tommy?
Still looking for my sign in Williamstown. The sharp turn,
Okay,
you know,
yeah, I know.
90-degree turn, you know, it's not there. Last month or the month, you said it was gonna be any.
I thought that had come back, and I'll check on that again. I mean, I thought it had come back.
You know, Riding Mills Road, 2 sharp turns, there's one that's really dangerous, more than 90 degrees, quite a few accidents.
Thank you for the sign on Ada Road, the bus sign, the bus stop sign. I was curious, it was curious to me that there was signage for traffic westbound, but not signage eastbound. So what's the determination that you?
What the sight distance is, one direction, it met had sufficient sight distance to see the bus, and the other side didn't.
Yeah, the straightaway gives enough time for someone
Yeah,
to
there's
accelerate.
there's no restriction in sight distance,
Right.
so
Okay.
we didn't put enough for one direction. Yes.
I appreciate that. I haven't heard anything back from anyone or noticed myself, but I'm keeping my eye on it. So thank you again for doing that. And if there's no other questions, I thank you.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, since we, no, you're good. Social services, real quick, since we have the director here with us today. Will we be discussing the building? We will, is that gonna be in your reports? Okay, got it. I was just making sure I didn't see it on the agenda directly.
So that would be new and unfinished business. Is there any,
We have the comprehensive plan.
we have the comprehensive plan, and Ms. Bishop is here to tell us about that.
Thank you. So when I first accepted this position 2.5 years ago, I was aware that a comprehensive plan update was on the horizon. Over the last couple of years, there's been a few roadblocks with that, but it's also given me a good opportunity to become familiar with the current comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision ordinances. So I've been able to see how they function, how they don't function, how effective they are, how they can be effective, areas that are needed for improvement. So our current comprehensive plan was adopted in 2002. There have been a few updates to that. State code requires that each locality adopt a 20-year comprehensive plan to be updated every 5 years. Typically, a comprehensive plan should guide the development in the county. It's not a regulatory document. It's a visionary document. For the next 20 years, paints the vision, the goals, priorities, strategies, how we're going to accomplish those. Our current comprehensive plan is sort of flipped on that. Right now, the zoning ordinance is guiding the development, not the comprehensive plan. When it's done correctly, it should be an economic development tool. It's often used as reference for grant applications such as Smart Scale, Virginia Outdoors Foundation grants. When you have something to point to that says, yes, our county already supports this, it's a lot easier for an entity who would be granting funding to say, well, they're already supportive of that, let's go ahead and give them that money. It'll also update our demographics and our inventory of infrastructure. So the board, we had authorization to release a request for proposals for the comp plan and both zoning and subdivision ordinance updates. That was advertised on October 7th with a deadline of November 5th. We received 3 proposals in response. So there were 2 firms that had qualifying proposals, and the panel selected by the Planning Commission interviewed those 2 firms last week on December 8th. There were several criteria referenced in the RFP to evaluate which firm would be chosen. Those were project understanding, approach and methodology, experience and qualifications, references, and cost. After interviewing both firms and discussion afterwards, the selection committee is recommending awarding the contract to the Berkeley Group, located out of Bridgewater, Virginia. Their project team is composed of individuals who have previously worked in local government setting. Their plan focus is on people, place, and performance. Their method allows the county to take ownership of the process and the final document, which I feel is important. Their process includes a diagnostic review of our existing comprehensive plan that's based on state code requirements and best practices from the American Planning Association. We'll work together on a thorough public engagement plan that'll be unique to Nelson, that is wide-reaching, inclusive, and will be maintained throughout the process. They're recommending joint work sessions of Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, so expectations are managed. We'll kick off the project, identify key issues, and encourage constituent involvement at that first kickoff meeting. That'll be scheduled in January. Then we'll begin website and branding, issue a community survey. They'll begin to hold public workshops and stakeholder listening sessions. And their recommendations for the best direction and best practices we should use will be based on the findings of their investigation. They'll also do an existing conditions analysis, vision and goal setting, policy development, and an implementation plan, all with joint work sessions. And of course, there will be public review and refinement prior to plan adoption to ensure that everyone was heard, everyone's concerns are being addressed, and everyone's on the same page with how we're going to move forward. Once a final plan is adopted, they will follow it up with another diagnostic of the zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinances. They'll generate recommendations that will make it consistent with our new comprehensive plan. Like I said, that'll be the enforcement tool to set the vision of the comp plan as the years go on. Current projects the Berkeley Group is working on include Richmond County and Greensville County comprehensive plans. Northampton County adopted their plan in June of this year. And they also did the City of Lexington comprehensive plan, which received the 2021 American Planning Association Commonwealth Plan of the Year honorable mention. Our office has also referenced that plan for topics such as lodging when researching how to move forward. In front of you are the cost and timeline estimates. They'll be right at the top of your desk there, Mr. Barton. So on it, they've provided, I think, a really good breakdown of their costs and what each of the items will be doing. They've estimated the total cost for the entire process to be around $160,000. The board's already allocated $50,000 in funding for this fiscal year, which we can use to get started. The final cost will be determined in partnership with county staff to align the project scope with available funding. So like I said, in front of you, you've got cost and timeline estimates. Their timeline carries through the end of 2023. That is the quickest it would get done. So I believe what we're looking for today is for the board to award the contract so that we can go ahead and notify the consultant and schedule our kickoff meeting sometime in January.
Thank you, Dylan. That's great to hear. I'm glad that this is right on the horizon for us now. Closer than that, actually.
Yeah. I think me and you are going on 4 years since the initial motion.
Government doesn't move fast.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Well, say when I accepted the position, Mr. Carter had passed on a memo with a few items on it. One was comprehensive plan update, non-conforming ordinance, commercial solar ordinance, and the Gladstone Depot. So I can report back that 3 of those have been taken care of and have either been completed or in motion. And I'm very much looking forward to putting my head down and working on them.
Great.
Okay.
I move that we approve the request.
For the Berkeley group.
Do what?
For the Berkeley group.
Right.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion that we approve the Berkeley Group as the consultant for our new comprehensive plan. Any further discussion?
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
Mr. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Okay. Next we have our county administrator report.
You read this, Ernie?
Yes.
Is there anything you know about?
Not immediately.
Okay.
I'm going to start at the end as soon as this comes up.
Yeah.
Just take a short break. What's she working on?
Okay. I've had a request to take a
Couple minutes.
5-minute break, so let us take 5 and we'll be back in a few. Thank you.
Okay.
You're so smart.
Oh.